Hello there. Imagine you urgently need to travel, but there are no nearby bus stops or available rideshare services. What would you do? Most likely, you'd flag down a passing car for a lift, right? 3 scenarios might occur. If you encounter an indifferent person, they might just drive on without noticing you. If you meet a kind person, they might stop and give you a ride. But what if you encounter someone with ill intentions? The case we'll explore today answers that question. You'll delve into a remote, forested road in Canada through your screen. This road is situated in an area where indigenous communities live. And for them, it's almost the only route to town. This sole option doesn't seem very safe, given that since the 1960s, dozens of people, mostly women, have disappeared along this route. Some have been confirmed dead, while others remain missing. Just how horrifying is this road? British Columbia is a province on the west coast of Canada, the 3rd largest in the country. In Canada, Highway 16 stretches across 4 provinces, with a total length of about 2.960 kilometers, 1.173 kilometers of which run through British Columbia. The section from Prince George to Prince Rupert, over 720 kilometers long, is known as the Highway of Tears. The area features dense forest terrain, home to many wild animals, including large predators, making it extremely dangerous. Besides Highway 16, there are Highways 97, 5, and 24, which have also seen many horrific incidents that terrify people when mentioned. Canada is a nation of immigrants, primarily from the British Isles and mainland Europe, with indigenous tribes comprising about 3.8% of the population. Around the Highway of Tears are 23 indigenous communities, most of which lack infrastructure, have relatively low educational levels, and face poor economic conditions. With no personal vehicles, hitchhiking is a convenient way to travel, simply standing by the roadside with a thumb out. Some kind drivers will stop and give them a lift. It's worth noting that the crime rate along the Highway of Tears and the surrounding roads is very high, with several incidents occurring each year. On Sunday, October 26, 1969, 2 hunters went into the forest 10 kilometers from Williams Lake to hunt. As they ventured deeper into the woods, they were horrified to find a naked woman lying motionless in the underbrush. Despite the cold weather and falling snow, they quickly reported the discovery to the police. And when authorities arrived, they found the victim dead, with multiple stab wounds and signs of sexual assault. The autopsy revealed that the victim had died from blood loss, and the time of death was estimated to be the previous night. The victim was identified as Gloria Moody, a 26-year-old mother of 2. Just before the murder, Gloria and her family had been traveling. She and her brother had been drinking at several bars near Williams Lake. On their way back, the brother went ahead while Gloria followed behind. When the brother turned around, he was horrified to find Gloria missing. He frantically searched for her, but found no trace. The next day, Gloria's body was discovered in the forest by the hunters. At that time, DNA technology was not well developed, and the crime scene provided few useful clues, making the investigation very challenging. The local police released information about the case, hoping to get witness testimonies. Shortly after, rumors spread that 3 roommates were involved in the case. The rumors grew, but no one came forward to report to the police. Upon hearing this, the police summoned the 3 individuals for questioning, but they all denied involvement in Gloria's death. Due to a lack of evidence, the 3 were released. A year after this case, a resident of Hudson's Hope was picking berries in the forest when they discovered the body of a woman lying on the ground. The individual immediately reported it to the police. Authorities quickly arrived at the scene and conducted an examination. The victim had numerous visible wounds, and the cause of death was a head injury, with an estimated time of death around 1 month prior. The victim was identified as Micheline Pear, 18, who had been missing for a month. During the investigation, 2 female witnesses testified that a month prior, they had driven by the scene and saw Micheline Pear trying to hitchhike. They picked her up, but after realizing that Micheline Pear's destination was not on their route, they dropped her off at a farm about 21 kilometers from where her body was found. Micheline pair might have then sought another ride, due to a lack of clues. This case remained a mystery for 4 years. That summer, a 16-year-old girl named Colleen McMillan from a small town in British Columbia wanted to visit a friend a few kilometers away and went to the highway to hitchhike. Recent years had seen many incidents on this route. Local authorities had urged people to avoid hitchhiking. Colleen had heard about these incidents, but her parents were not home that day, leaving her alone with her 2 younger siblings. Before leaving, she told her siblings she would hitchhike to her friend's house and asked them not to tell their parents. Little did Colleen know, this would be her last journey. A month later, Colleen's body was found in the forest, 46 kilometers from her home. At the scene, her shirt and personal belongings were found, but no fingerprints or witnesses were identified. This case, like the previous ones, remained unsolved for many years. The police have kept some evidence from the case, hoping to find new clues in the future. In the following decades, similar cases continued to occur, mostly involving single Indigenous women hitchhiking on the highway. Some missing persons' bodies have been found, but many remain missing, despite the numerous incidents along this route. The police had only investigated each case individually, indicating they had not fully addressed this serious issue. In 1998, residents near this stretch of road held a memorial service at Trigo Tower to remember those who had gone missing or died on these roads over the years. The families of the victims prayed together that night, with each participant moved to tears. After a solemn 10-minute ceremony, the 20-kilometer stretch of Highway 16 from Prince George to Prince Rupert was renamed the Highway of Tears. Everyone recognized the connection between the disappearances and demanded that the police solve these long-standing unsolved cases. Due to immense public pressure, the Canadian police officially compiled records of the cases on the Highway of Tears and began a systematic investigation. Over the decades, dozens of cases have occurred in this area. Initially, 3 male victims were included in the list of cases related to the Highway of Tears, but after investigation, it was determined that these men were murdered for different reasons, and their cases did not match the others. Due to the complex and chaotic nature of the case files, it took a lot of time to clarify all the clues, extending the investigation by several years. Although the police have genuinely focused on solving the cases, they still haven't found new leads, until a new case arose. Nicole Hoare's disappearance. Nicole Hoare, a 24-year-old woman from a well-off family in Red Deer, Alberta, was an avid hiker. On a day in June 2002, Nicole set off for Prince George, British Columbia, wearing a red long-sleeve shirt, beige pants, and black sandals, carrying a backpack to participate in a tree planting activity. She called her sister, who lived in British Columbia, to say she would visit her the next day. However, 6 days later, her sister had still not heard from Nicole. At the same time, the tree planting coordinator reported to the local police that they had been unable to reach Nicole despite their best efforts. Prince George, where Nicole was headed, is about 370 kilometers from her sister's home in Smithers, so Nicole would have needed transportation to visit her, as walking that distance was impractical. However, upon investigation, police found no evidence that Nicole had used public transportation on the day she went missing. A grocery store clerk in Prince George reported that Nicole had shopped at his store. Initially, Nicole tried to pay with a credit card, but due to a malfunction, she ended up paying with cash. Police checked Nicole's bank records and confirmed that she withdrew 40 Canadian dollars in cash on the day she disappeared, with no further transactions recorded. Another witness reported seeing Nicole standing by the roadside, trying to hitch a ride. Soon after, a yellow or orange vehicle turned off the main road and stopped, and the witness saw Nicole get into the car. Based on these clues, police suspected Nicole was trying to hitch a ride to visit her sister in Smithers, but went missing on the way. Authorities launched a massive search effort along the route from Prince George to Smithers. However, the 370 kilometers distance proved too vast, and despite their best efforts, the police found no trace of her. During the investigation, a suspect named Leland Switzer, who lived on the outskirts of Prince George, came to light. Evidence suggested that Leland had encountered Nicole 2 days after her disappearance. Leland had been sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his brother, and police suspected he might be connected to Nicole's case. However, lacking concrete evidence, Leland was temporarily removed from the suspect list. Other clues in the case remained undiscovered. By 2005, an initiative called Project Ipana was launched to investigate a series of cases along the Highway of Tears. Ipana refers to the branches of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in British Columbia. This name was borrowed from mythology, and for decades, the Highway of Tears had seen numerous unresolved cases. The goal of this plan was to identify all perpetrators targeting women on this route. However, not all cases were included. They had to meet certain criteria. Specifically, the victim had to be a woman. The crime scene had to be on the Highway of Tears or nearby highways 97, 5, or 24. The victim must have been traveling alone by bus and not be a victim of accident or family issues. Initially, 3 cases were investigated under this plan. Within a year, this number grew to 9, and by 2007, it had doubled to 18 cases, with 10 victims being Indigenous Canadians. However, Indigenous communities believe the actual number of cases that should be included was much higher, possibly around 40. In these serial cases, perpetrators often acted alone. They exhibited distinctive characteristics in their modus operandi, and cases committed by the same person had certain similarities. Investigators typically began with the location and time of the victim's last appearance, then use clues to investigate cases occurring near the highway, with most victims dying from strangulation. Although these cases span many years, they could be divided into 9 phases. If the cases were committed by the same individual, the perpetrator might have had rest periods between attacks. However, investigators also believed that multiple perpetrators might be involved in the Highway of Tears cases. Through extensive police efforts, some killers were identified. In 2006, the investigation team sent 18 cases for analysis using the most advanced scientific methods. Experts successfully extracted the DNA of a man from a shirt found at the Colleen McMillan crime scene. 6 years later, Canadian police entered this DNA sample into the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol database, which is much larger than Canada's criminal database. Through data matching, Interpol identified the perpetrator as Bobby Jack Fowler. Born in June 1939, Bobby was a drifter with a criminal record across North America, often driving an old car to various bars. In the early 1970s, Bobby frequently crossed from the U.S. into Canada. In June 1995, while staying at a hotel in Oregon, U.S., Bobby kidnapped a woman. Fortunately, the victim managed to escape by jumping from a second-floor window and reported the incident to the police. Bobby was subsequently sentenced to 16 years in prison for kidnapping. After the trial, he was transferred to an Oregon State prison, where he died of illness in 2006 at age 66. DNA testing confirmed Bobby's involvement in Colleen McMillan's murder. Further investigation revealed Bobby's connection to the cases of Pamela Darlington and Gail Ways in 1973. 2 19-year-old victims whose murders occurred less than a month apart while Bobby was in Prince George. However, evidence in these cases was limited. No DNA was collected, and with Bobby's death, confirmation was not possible. Based on evidence provided by Canadian police, U.S. authorities investigated and found that Bobby might have committed 7 murders in the U.S. and dozens of cases in Canada. There was evidence suggesting that the deaths were indeed the work of a serial killer on the Highway of Tears. Despite Bobby's arrest in June 1995, other cases continued to occur on this route, indicating that other killers might still be at large. In a winter day in 2010, during a patrol on this road, an officer signaled a speeding pickup truck to stop. The driver appeared suspicious, and the officer suspected he might be a poacher. Upon inspection, the officer noticed signs of recent hunting on the driver, but found no game. Instead, the officer discovered a snow-covered key, a monkey-shaped backpack, and a wallet with a hospital ID card in a girl's name. Given these suspicious signs, The officer detained the driver under wildlife protection laws. With additional support, a tracking specialist followed the pickup's trail and discovered a road leading to the location. Ultimately, they found the body of a young girl. The driver in question is Cody Leijbokoff, 20 years old. The victim was Loren Leslie, a 15-year-old girl with one eye completely blind and the other with only 50% vision. Loren and Cody met online, and on the day of the incident, she secretly left her mother to travel to Prince George to meet Cody, only to be murdered. Following the incident, police obtained Cody's DNA and compared it with their database. They discovered his involvement in 3 other cases between 2009 and 2010. The murders of Jill Stachenko, Cynthia Mouse, and Natasha Montgomery. All 3 women were killed after accepting rides on the road. DNA evidence linked Cody to all 3 cases, confirming his involvement in these murders. Cody was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. He is currently held at a maximum security prison in British Columbia. In the year Cody was sentenced, investigators made a new discovery regarding the 1978 disappearance of Monica Jack, 12, from Merritt. She was last seen riding her bicycle by a lake. Her bike was later found, but she was missing. 17 years later, a forestry worker found her body by the roadside, identified through DNA matching. With Monica's case reopened, police investigated and suspected a man named Gary Taylor Hanlon, who was involved in dark industries in Canada. To gather evidence, investigators sent an undercover agent posing as a gang leader to gain Gary's trust and collect crucial information. In this setup, trust and loyalty were paramount. No one was allowed to lie to the boss. One night, investigators sent several officers disguised as gang members to a bar where only Gary was not an officer. The boss publicly reprimanded a member for failing a task and lying, demanding the return of keys and severing contact, saying, "We all know we can't lie to each other. This is a lesson." The boss then informed Gary that they had heard about his involvement in a murder case and would try to help if he confessed. Gary, aware that police suspected him and that he hadn't been arrested due to lack of evidence, was relieved to have the boss offer assistance. Gary then confessed to the entire sequence of events, including his involvement in another case. The victim was Catherine Mary Herbert, 11, who went missing in September 1975. After 2 months, her clothing, shoes, and socks were found in a forest. The autopsy revealed skull and jaw fractures. Gary admitted to this murder during the confession. The investigators recorded Gary's entire confession. After his confession, Gary was arrested. On January 17, 2019, he was sentenced to 25 years to life for first-degree murder, with no possibility of parole. Among the 18 cases the investigative team resolved, they identified 5 suspects, including Gary Taylor Hanlon, Bobby Jack Fowler, and Cody Leijbokoff. The other 2, Brian Peter Arp and Edward Dennis Isaac, were also sentenced to life. However, the number of perpetrators on the highway may exceed 5, and investigators continue to work on unsolved cases. Due to the vast and sparsely populated highway, coupled with random criminal activity, preventing such crimes has been challenging, leading to an increase in cases. To address this, local authorities have implemented 33 recommendations, including enhancing public transportation along the highway to reduce hitchhiking. Additionally, more police patrols have been deployed to respond quickly to any unusual activities. Public transportation has increased, and signs prohibiting hitchhiking have become more common, though many still covertly hitch rides. Today, the dangers on these highways remain unresolved, with potential threats still lurking. Therefore, everyone, especially women, must remain vigilant when alone with strangers, as we cannot predict their intentions. Ultimately, the true danger lies not in the road itself, but in human nature. If someone has extreme tendencies and desires to commit crimes, they will find ways to harm their targets. Thus, in addition to enhancing security, Psychological interventions are crucial to help people distinguish right from wrong and return to the right path before it's too late. That concludes today's video. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next video.